This how-to video will show you how to prepare the Hamilton S1 ventilator. However, the procedure is exactly the same for a Hamilton G5 ventilator. This educational video does not replace the relevant instructions for use. Be sure to read the ventilator's operator's manual, as well as instructions for use that accompany the humidifier or other devices, breathing circuits, and other consumables. Pay particular attention to important safety and hygiene information. There are a few steps you need to follow before starting ventilation. The whole procedure takes approximately 3 minutes. Make sure the power cable is firmly connected in the socket to prevent accidental disconnection, and then connect it to the primary power outlet. The primary power indicator is solid blue when the ventilator is plugged in and connected to primary power, even when the ventilator is turned off. If the battery is not charging for whatever reason, the indicator will remain dark. Make sure the ventilator is connected to a power source prior to starting ventilation. If you haven't done so already, connect the oxygen and air gas hoses to the ventilator, and then to the gas supply or gas cylinder. To connect the breathing circuit, do the following. First, install the expiratory valve set. Then, select the appropriate breathing circuit and components. Third, assemble the breathing circuit. Then, connect the external devices and sensors. Finally, perform the pre-operational checks. If you are using a pre-assembled coaxial breathing set, this contains everything you need: the expiratory valve set, the breathing circuit, and the flow sensor. In a single-use expiratory valve set, the membrane is permanently attached to the expiratory valve body. Do not remove, tug, or pull on the membrane. Position the expiratory valve set in the expiratory port and twist it clockwise until it locks into place. To connect the coaxial breathing circuit, first attach the main tube to the inspiratory port, and then connect the expandable expiratory tube to the expiratory valve. Finally, attach the blue and clear tubes to the flow sensor connection ports on the ventilator. Always position the flow sensor tubing on top of the flow sensor. If you plan on using a double-limb heated breathing circuit, start by installing the expiratory valve set. The expiratory valve set is delivered clean and ready for use. Always check the set before using it on the patient. Position the expiratory valve set in the expiratory port and twist it clockwise until it locks into place. If you are using an autoclavable expiratory valve set, first assemble it by placing the silicone membrane onto the expiratory valve housing. Ensure that the metal plate is facing upwards, and then proceed with the installation. The procedure is the same as for a single-use component. Install a water bag or bottle above the humidifier. Choose the correct breathing circuit according to the patient group or selected treatment. The following information applies if you are using the Hamilton BC8022 breathing circuit or any other double-limb heated breathing circuit. First, insert the humidifier chamber. Connect the shorter blue tube to the inspiratory port on the ventilator. And then connect the expiratory tube to the expiratory valve. Insert the water feed line into the water bag or bottle. Make sure that all electrical contacts on the breathing circuit match the connecting element on the humidifier. Insert a flow sensor into the breathing circuit in front of the patient connection, that is, the Y-piece. Attach the blue and clear tubes to the flow sensor connection ports on the ventilator. To prevent water accumulating in the flow sensor and tubing, position the flow sensor tubing on top of the flow sensor. The gas temperature is measured at the Y-piece by means of the temperature probe integrated in the inspiratory limb. Keep the inspiratory limb positioned correctly. To prevent patient or ventilator contamination, connect a bacterial and viral inspiratory filter between the patient and the inspiratory port. An expiratory filter is not required, but you may use one for infection control, according to your institution's protocol. If you use one, place it on the patient side of the expiratory valve. Monitor closely for increased expiratory circuit resistance. If you use a coaxial breathing circuit, the only filter you need is a heat and moisture exchange filter. Position the filter between the flow sensor and the flex tube, as described in the operator's manual. If you are using a mainstream CO2 sensor, connect the sensor cable at this point to the corresponding connection port. Slide the CO2 sensor onto the airway adapter. Align the arrows on both components and press them together until you hear a click. Then connect the sensor with the airway adapter between the breathing circuit and the flow sensor. Position the breathing circuit in such a way that the tubes will not be pushed, pulled, or kinked if the patient moves. The next step is to perform the pre-operational checks. This how-to video will show you how to set up a Hamilton S1 ventilator for ventilation on a specific patient. However, the procedure is exactly the same for the Hamilton G5 ventilator. This educational video does not replace the relevant instructions for use. Be sure to read the device's operator's manual, as well as instructions for use that accompany the humidifier or other devices, breathing circuits, and other consumables. Pay particular attention to important safety and hygiene information. Setting up ventilation generally takes just a few steps. You can complete the whole procedure in less than 1 minute. Before connecting a new patient to the ventilator, select the right patient group and sex, and then specify the patient's height. The ventilator calculates the patient's ideal body weight. It is important to enter the correct patient data because the ventilator uses it as a basis for certain calculations and initial mode control settings. If you have already performed the pre-operational checks, you don't need to repeat them. The test results are stored in the ventilator's memory, even when it is turned off. Make sure that the setup you calibrated is not changed or altered while the ventilator is in storage. If you haven't already done so, perform the pre-operational checks now. To start ventilation quickly for a new patient, you can use a default ventilation mode with all the settings pre-configured. The default mode, together with a selected patient group, is displayed in the upper right corner. Touch Controls to review and adjust the control settings. To review and adjust the alarms, touch the Alarms button. Then, touch the alarm control and adjust it. For each patient group, you can select a default ventilation mode and all the settings relevant for that mode. To start ventilation, touch Start Ventilation. To change any control settings, select and adjust the setting, or touch Controls and access all the available settings. The change takes effect immediately. To enable, disable, or adjust the tube resistance compensation, touch Additions and open the TRC window. This function is disabled by default. If needed, open the PSI window to enable or disable PSI. If you need to change basic patient data, touch Patient and adjust the settings as needed. If needed, you can change the active ventilation mode. Just select the desired mode and confirm. The controls window opens. Review and adjust the control settings as needed, and then touch Confirm to activate the new mode. After changing the ventilation mode, you should review the alarm settings. To review and adjust the alarms, touch the Alarms button. Then, select the alarm control and adjust it. To set alarm limits quickly, touch the Auto button. All alarm limits, except for the tidal volume and apnea alarms, will be set automatically around the current monitoring parameter values. To stop ventilation, press the Standby key. Then, touch Activate Standby. The device enters standby, and the yellow counter shows the time elapsed in this mode. Note that while using IntelliCuff, you must first deflate the cuff and turn off IntelliCuff before turning off the ventilator. To turn off the ventilator, press the power button on the back of the ventilator.